Poor little girl invites billionaire to school party. His response transforms lives. A simple favor becomes an unexpected bond. She calls him dad, and he begins to change inside. But his world doesn't accept feelings, and that puts everything at risk. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. We'll continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear in your life. The school gate was buzzing with end-of-day activity. Children ran toward their parents, backpacks bouncing on their backs, smiles plastered on their faces. Emily stood near the wall, watching the movement with eyes that seemed too big for her 5-year-old face. She firmly held the strap of her worn-out backpack, waiting for her mother, who always arrived a few minutes after the other parents. The other children passed by her, talking excitedly about the school party that would happen on Friday. It was Family Day, a special event where each student should bring their parents for a presentation. Emily swallowed hard as she heard the excited comments from classmates about preparations, how their parents had already confirmed attendance, about the gifts they would receive. That morning, the teacher had handed out the official invitation to each child. Emily looked at the crumpled paper at the bottom of her backpack. The headline was written in colorful letters. "Come celebrate with us. Bring Mum and Dad for a special day." She had folded the invitation several times, as if she could make the words that hurt her disappear. During recess, Sophie, a classmate with curly hair, had approached her on the swing. "Emily, is your dad coming to the party?" The question came with genuine curiosity, without malice, but still cut like a blade. Emily shook her head, pretending to be interested in her own shoes. "He's traveling," she lied, feeling her face heat up. Sophie tilted her head, confused. "But he's always traveling. I've never seen your dad here at school." Other children approached, attracted by the conversation. Jason, a boy with spiky hair, crossed his arms. "It's true! My mom said you don't have a dad." The words echoed across the playground as if they were shouted, although he had spoken in a normal tone. Emily felt her eyes sting, but refused to cry in front of her classmates. "I do have a dad," she said, raising her chin with a determination she didn't feel inside. "He's just busy." Jason laughed, shaking his head. "My mum said your mum works as a cleaner, and that you really don't have a dad. That's why you're poor." The end of recess bell saved Emily from responding. She ran to the classroom with her heart pounding, feeling the weight of her classmates' curious stares. During art class, while drawing a house with stick figures, she noticed that all the drawings around her had 3 figures: Daddy, Mommy, and Child. Hers had only 2. Now, standing at the gate, Emily observed families reuniting. She saw Sophie's father arriving in a suit, lifting his daughter in the air. She saw Jason's mother chatting animatedly with her husband about weekend plans. She saw hugs, kisses, shared conversations. And she felt that familiar emptiness in her chest again. That's when she saw him. A tall man with graying temples, wearing an impeccable dark suit. He was leaning against an expensive black car, but didn't seem to be waiting for any child. His eyes wandered through the school movement with a distant expression, almost melancholic. There was something about him that caught Emily's attention. Perhaps it was the solitary posture, which somehow mirrored what she felt inside. Emily looked around. Her mother hadn't arrived yet. The other children continued to be picked up by their parents. The man remained there, motionless, as if lost in thought. A crazy idea began to form in her mind. It was absurd, impossible, but at the same time seemed like the only way out of the hole she found herself in. She took a deep breath and began walking toward him. Each step seemed to last an eternity. Her little hands were sweating inside the backpack strap. When she got close enough, he lowered his eyes to her, surprised by the unexpected approach. "Hi," said Emily, with a small but firm voice. The man blinked a few times, as if unable to process the situation. "Hello," he replied, slightly tilting his head. His voice was deep, polite, but there was clear hesitation. Emily gathered courage and spoke quickly, as if afraid the words would escape her. "Could you pretend to be my dad for a day?" The question came out rushed, almost inaudible. The man frowned, clearly confused. "What?" "There's a party at school on Friday," continued Emily, looking at her own feet. "It's Family Day. Everyone is bringing their dad and mum. I only have my mum." She raised her eyes to him, and in them was a vulnerability that cut the man's heart. Everyone keeps asking where my dad is. I don't want to be different anymore." Michael Thompson, CEO of one of the largest companies in the country, was speechless. In his 50 years of life, he had faced tense meetings with international investors, negotiated million-dollar contracts, made decisions that affected thousands of jobs, but he had never been confronted with something so simple and yet so complex as a 5-year-old child's request. "I don't understand," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Why me?" Emily shrugged. "You look sad, just like me, and you look like a dad." She discreetly pointed to the other men who were still at the gate. "Like them." Michael felt something move in his chest, a long-forgotten sensation. He looked at the girl in front of him, noticing her worn shoes, the patched backpack, but mostly the hopeful eyes that stared at him. "I don't know anything about children," he said, almost to himself. "You don't need to know," Emily quickly replied. "You just need to stand by my side and maybe smile a little." She hesitated before continuing. "My mom always says people look beautiful when they smile." Before Michael could answer, a woman approached running. It was Sarah, Emily's mother, still wearing her work uniform with her hair hastily tied back. "Emily, sorry I'm late, honey. The bus took longer than usual." She stopped abruptly when she saw her daughter talking to a stranger. "Who is this gentleman, Emily?" asked Sarah, instinctively pulling her daughter close. Her voice carried protection and a hint of distrust. Michael straightened, suddenly feeling embarrassed by the whole situation. Emily looked between her mother and Michael, sensing the tension in the air. "Mom, this is—" She paused, realizing she didn't even know his name. Michael realized the girl's dilemma and introduced himself. "Michael Thompson," he said, extending his hand to Sarah. "Your daughter asked me an interesting question." Sarah shook his hand cautiously, noticing the quality of his suit, watch, and shoes. Everything about him screamed money and power. "What kind of question?" Michael looked at Emily, who was staring at him expectantly. He knew he was about to enter unknown territory. "She asked if I could accompany her to a school party," he said, choosing his words carefully, "as a father figure." Sarah's eyes widened, clearly shocked. "Emily, you can't go around asking strangers for that." "But Mom," Emily began to speak, her eyes filling with tears. "Everyone is bringing their dad to the party. I don't want to be the only one without a dad again." The pain in the girl's voice was like a punch to Sarah's stomach. She knew how much this affected her daughter, but never imagined it would reach the point of asking strangers for help. Michael observed the interaction between mother and daughter, seeing Sarah's internal conflict. She wanted to protect her daughter, but also knew of the girl's need. "May I speak with you for a moment?" he asked, indicating a more private location. Sarah hesitated, but something in his respectful tone reassured her slightly. She asked Emily to wait while they moved a few steps away. "Look, Mr. Thompson," she began, "I appreciate your patience with my daughter, but this is impossible. I don't know you. I don't know your intentions." "I completely understand your concern," replied Michael. "If I were in your place, I would react the same way." He paused for a moment, as if organizing his thoughts. "But I can say that I have no inappropriate intentions. Your daughter just touched me with the sincerity of her request." Sarah studied his face, looking for signs of dishonesty. "Why would a man like you be interested in this? From what I see, you must have your own commitments, your own family." Michael looked away for a moment. "Actually, I don't have a family. I work a lot, have few personal relationships. Maybe that's why Emily's question affected me so much." There was silence between them as Sarah processed the information. She looked at Emily, who was watching them from afar with anxiety written all over her face. "I don't know," she said finally. "It's all very strange, very sudden." "What do you think if we talked more about this?" suggested Michael. "We could meet in a public place with Emily present, so you could get to know me better. If you don't feel comfortable, there's no problem at all." Sarah bit her lower lip, a sign she was considering the proposal. Emily approached timidly, unable to stay away from the conversation that was deciding her fate. "Mom," she said softly, "he seems like a good person." Sarah looked at her daughter, seeing hope shining in her eyes, and felt her heart tighten. 3 days had passed since the meeting at the school gate. Sarah had barely slept, tossing in bed thinking about the possible consequences of accepting Michael's proposal. She knew the risks of trusting strangers, especially when it came to Emily's safety. But there was something in that man's look, a sincerity she rarely saw in people. Emily, on the other hand, talked about nothing else. During breakfast, she asked if her mother had decided. During lunch, she drew pictures of 3 people together. At night, before sleeping, she whispered silent requests for everything to work out. Hope had taken over her little heart in a way Sarah had never seen before. On Thursday afternoon, Sarah finally gathered the courage to call the number Michael had left. Her hands trembled as she dialed. He answered on the second ring with a professional voice that immediately softened upon recognizing who it was. "Sarah, how are you?" The genuine concern in his voice surprised her. "I'm fine," she replied, nervously adjusting her hair even though she knew he couldn't see her. "I've been thinking about what we discussed. If the offer is still open, I'd like for us to meet this afternoon." The relief in Michael's voice was palpable. "Of course it's still open. Where would you feel most comfortable?" Sarah suggested the city park, a public and familiar place where Emily liked to play. They arranged to meet at 4 o'clock near the playground. Michael arrived a few minutes before the scheduled time. He had exchanged his formal suit for more casual clothes, dark jeans and a light blue button-down shirt, no tie. Even so, it was impossible to disguise the natural elegance he carried. He sat on a bench near the playground, watching children play and feeling a mixture of anxiety and curiosity about what was about to happen. When he saw Sarah and Emily approaching, he immediately stood up. Emily ran ahead, wearing a pink dress with small flowers that Sarah had spent the entire morning fixing. "You came!" exclaimed the girl, stopping a few meters from him with eyes shining with joy. "I promised I would," replied Michael, crouching to be at her height. "And I always keep my promises." Sarah observed the interaction, noticing how he talked to Emily. It wasn't condescending like many adults, nor uncomfortable like someone who isn't used to children. It was natural, respectful. "Emily, why don't you play a little while Mr. Michael and I talk?" suggested Sarah. The girl hesitated, clearly wanting to participate in the conversation, but eventually agreed when Michael promised that afterward he would play with her on the slide. Sitting on the bench, Sarah and Michael remained silent for a few moments, watching Emily happily swing. "Thank you for coming," Sarah finally said. "I know this must be strange for you too." "Michael," he gently corrected, "and you don't need to thank me. Actually, I must confess that I haven't been able to stop thinking about Emily's request since Tuesday." He paused, as if deciding how much to reveal. "It's been a long time since I've encountered something so pure, without ulterior motives, without financial interest, just a child wanting to feel included." Sarah studied his profile as he spoke. There was something melancholic about Michael, a subtle sadness that she recognized because she carried it too. "Can I ask why you accepted? A man in your position must have many commitments." Michael chuckled softly, but without humor. "That's an interesting question. Commitments I have many, but none that really matter." He turned to face her. "You know, Sarah, I've built an entire life based on results, on material achievements. I never stopped to think about what I was missing along the way." "And what were you missing?" Sarah asked softly. "True connections, simple moments, the feeling of being needed for something beyond the money I can generate." He discreetly pointed to Emily, who was now playing on the seesaw with another child. "When your daughter asked if I could pretend to be her father, it was the first time in years that someone asked me for something that had nothing to do with profit or power." Sarah felt her heart tighten. There was a vulnerability in Michael that completely contrasted with the successful executive image he projected. "Emily has that effect on people," she said. "She sees the world differently, more simply. For her, it doesn't matter if you have money or not. What matters is if you'll be there when she needs you." "And you?" asked Michael. "How do you feel about all this?" Sarah sighed, organizing her thoughts. "Scared," she admitted. "Emily has never had a father figure. It's always been just the two of us against the world. I'm afraid she'll get too attached and then get hurt when you decide it's not worth it anymore." Sarah's brutal honesty caught Michael by surprise. He was silent for a few seconds, processing the weight of the responsibility he was assuming. "I understand your concern," he finally said, "and I can't promise that I know what I'm doing because I don't. But I can promise one thing. If I start this, I'll see it through. I won't abandon Emily halfway." At that moment, Emily ran up to them, breathless and smiling. "Can I show Michael how I can walk backwards on the seesaw?" Sarah laughed, nodding positively. Michael stood up, extending his hand to Emily. "Of course, but you'll have to teach me too." "I never learned to walk backwards on a seesaw," Emily's expression of amazement was priceless. Never. Not even when you were a kid. Michael shook his head, pretending to be embarrassed. I never had much time to play when I was little. Emily took his hand with determination. Then I'll teach you everything. Sarah watched them walking toward the playground, Emily chattering animatedly about seesaw rules and Michael listening with genuine attention. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to imagine what it would be like to have someone to share simple moments of life with Emily, someone who truly cared about the girl's well-being. For the next hour, Michael played with Emily as if it were the most natural thing in the world. He learned to walk backwards on the seesaw, was taught about the secret rules of the slide, and even participated in a complex make-believe game where he was a knight protecting Princess Emily from invisible dragons. Sarah noticed how Michael transformed when he was with Emily. The bodily rigidity disappeared, his shoulders relaxed, and something like genuine joy appeared in his eyes. He wasn't just tolerating the games, he was truly having fun. As it began to get dark, Emily became visibly sad about having to leave. "Will you be there tomorrow?" she asked, holding Michael's hand with both her small hands. "At the school party?" Michael looked at Sarah, who nodded discreetly. "I'll be there," he promised, "and I'll be very proud to stand by your side." Emily jumped with joy, hugging his legs tightly. "Thank you for agreeing to be my borrowed dad." The phrase echoed in Michael's heart in a way he hadn't expected. Borrowed dad, that's what he would be. A temporary presence in Emily's life, someone who would fill a void for a few moments before returning to his real life. But as he watched the girl's radiant smile, he wondered if he too wasn't being filled by something he didn't know was missing. On the way home, Sarah pulled Emily aside for a serious conversation. "Honey, you need to understand that Michael is doing this to help you, but he's not really your dad. He has his own life, his own commitments." Emily was quiet for a few moments, processing her mother's words. "I know, Mom," she finally said, "but that doesn't mean he can't like me, right? Or that I can't like him." The simplicity of Emily's logic left Sarah without an answer. Her daughter was right. Relationships didn't need permanent labels to be true. And maybe, just maybe, all of them needed this connection more than they imagined. That night, Michael stayed up late in his silent apartment, rethinking every moment of the meeting in the park. For the first time in years, he had something to look forward to beyond meetings and financial reports. He had a school party on Friday, where a 5-year-old girl would count on his presence to feel complete. Emily, in turn, slept hugging her teddy bear, dreaming of the next day. In the dream, she was on the school stage, making her presentation, and there in the audience were her mother and her borrowed dad, applauding and smiling proudly. It was everything she had always wished for, to no longer be different, no longer be the girl without a father. Sarah stayed in the kitchen drinking tea and organizing the last details for the next day. She had ironed and fixed Emily's best outfit, prepared a special snack, and even allowed herself to use the lipstick she saved for special occasions. Tomorrow would be an important day, not just for Emily but for all of them. It was the beginning of something that none of the three could fully define, but that all felt could change their lives forever. Friday morning dawned with a radiant sun that seemed to approve of Emily's plans. She woke up earlier than usual, running to her mother's room with eyes shining with expectation. "Mum, today's the day." Sarah, who had been awake for an hour thinking about all the details, smiled and hugged her daughter. "Today's the day," she confirmed, kissing the top of Emily's head. "Let's get ready calmly so we can look beautiful for the party." Emily danced around the house while getting ready, humming a song she had learned at school for the presentation. Michael had spent the night awake, alternating between anxiety and a strange sense of purpose he hadn't felt in a long time. At 6 in the morning, he gave up trying to sleep and went to the mall as soon as it opened, looking for the perfect gift for Emily. He wanted something special but not too extravagant that would embarrass Sarah. After much searching, he found in a small educational toy store a children's painting kit with a small easel, colorful paints, and brushes of different sizes. He remembered how Emily had drawn during the meeting in the park, concentrated and creative. It was perfect. At school, the movement started early. The teachers decorated the rooms with students' work, prepared a small stage in the courtyard, and organized chairs for the parents. The theme was "My Family," and each child would make a presentation showing drawings or talking about special people in their lives. When Michael arrived at the school gate, He found Sarah and Emily waiting for him. Emily wore a yellow dress with white lace details that Sarah had sewn especially for the occasion. Her hair was held back with a simple headband, but she radiated beauty and joy. "Michael!" shouted Emily, running to hug him. He lifted her in the air, spinning her slightly. And Sarah couldn't help but smile at the genuine happiness on both their faces. Michael had chosen a navy blue suit without a tie, trying to look formal but accessible. "You look beautiful, princess," he said, putting Emily down, "and this gift is for you." He handed her the bag with the painting kit, and Emily opened her eyes wide in surprise. "For me, really?" "I thought you might like to paint," explained Michael. "I saw how well you draw." Emily hugged the bag to her chest as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. "Thank you, Daddy." The word came out naturally, without thinking, and the three stood in silence for a moment. Sarah felt her heart race. It was the first time Emily had called Michael Daddy, and the naturalness with which she did it was both touching and concerning. Michael, in turn, felt something move deeply in his chest. He had never been called Daddy by anyone, and the feeling was indescribable. "You're welcome, sweetheart," he replied softly, deciding not to correct Emily. At that moment, in that context, he was indeed her father. Sarah observed the exchange, noticing how the two connected so naturally that it almost seemed like they had always been family. They entered the school together, and Emily immediately began introducing Michael to everyone she met along the way. "This is my teacher, Mrs. Wilson, and this is my daddy, Michael." The teacher greeted Michael cordially, but Sarah noticed the curious look she cast between them. During the first part of the party, they watched the presentations of the other children. Emily sat between Sarah and Michael, whispering comments about each classmate who went up on stage. Michael discovered that he had infinite patience to listen to the girls' observations, even when she repeated information about classmates he would never see again. When it was Emily's turn, she went up on stage with a confidence that neither of them had seen before. She showed a drawing she had made especially for the occasion. A house with 3 figures holding hands, a woman with long hair, a tall man, and a small girl in the middle. "This is my family," said Emily into the microphone with a clear and proud voice. "This is my mom, Sarah, who works really hard and gives the best hugs in the world. And this is my daddy, Michael, who taught me to walk backwards on the seesaw and always keeps his promises." She paused, looking directly at them in the audience. "They love me, and I love them." The audience applauded, but Michael could barely hear because of the whirlwind of emotions he felt. Sarah discreetly wiped away a tear, proud of her daughter's courage, and touched by the simplicity with which she had defined love and family. After the presentation, other children approached Emily to meet Michael. For the first time, she wasn't the different girl. She was just another child with her parents present. Michael patiently answered the curious questions from the children, pretending not to notice the evaluating looks from some other parents. During the community snack time, Sarah noticed some mothers whispering while looking at them. She recognized some colleagues from her night job among the school staff who were helping with the event. One of them, Tiffany, approached with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Sarah, what a surprise. I didn't know you had a husband," said Tiffany, with a tone that suggested more malicious curiosity than genuine interest. Sarah felt her face heat up, not knowing exactly how to respond. Michael, sensing Sarah's discomfort, approached and extended his hand to Tiffany. "Michael Thompson, very pleased to meet you." His imposing and polite presence left Tiffany visibly intimidated, and she muttered an excuse to quickly move away. "Thank you," whispered Sarah to Michael. "Some people here can be complicated." He nodded understandingly. "I understand, and don't worry, I know how to handle curious people." As the party continued, Michael found himself genuinely enjoying the experience. He chatted with other parents about trivial things like cartoons and favorite toys, participated in a family competition where he partnered with Emily, and even helped organize the chairs when the event ended. Emily was radiant. For the first time, she had participated in a school event with both her parents present, just like all the other children. She held Sarah and Michael's hands as they walked to the parking lot, swinging her arms and humming. "Can I keep my painting kit at your house, Daddy?" asked Emily innocently. The question caught Michael off guard. He looked at Sarah, uncertain how to respond. "Emily," Sarah began to speak, but Michael gently interrupted her. "Of course you can," he said. "But what if I visited you so we could paint together? That way your mum can participate too." Emily clapped her hands, excited about the idea. Sarah felt a mixture of gratitude and growing concern. Things were moving faster than she had imagined. That afternoon, when they returned home, Emily couldn't stop talking about the party. She showed all the neighbors the gift she had received, repeatedly told about her presentation on stage, and mentioned Daddy Michael in every sentence. Sarah began to realize the dimension of what she had allowed to happen. Emily wasn't just pretending to have a father for an event. She was genuinely becoming attached to Michael as a real father figure. And worse yet, Sarah was beginning to get attached too. During dinner, the phone rang. It was Michael. "I hope I'm not bothering you," he said. "I just wanted to know how Emily was after the party." Sarah smiled, touched by his concern. "She's on cloud nine. She can't stop talking about today." "And you, how are you feeling?" asked Michael. The simple question carried an intimacy that Sarah didn't expect. "Confused," she admitted. "All of this is very new to me, to both of us." "For me too," confessed Michael. "But I know I don't regret accepting Emily's request. Today was one of the most meaningful days I've had in a long time." There was a comfortable pause on the line. "Sarah, can I ask you something? Would you and Emily like to have dinner with me tomorrow? Nothing formal, just pizza or something like that?" Sarah hesitated. Each step they took together made everything more real, more complicated. But as she looked at Emily, who was drawing another happy family at the kitchen table, she knew she couldn't say no. "I think Emily would love that," she replied. After hanging up the phone, Sarah watched her daughter. Emily had changed since Michael entered their lives. She was more confident, happier, more complete. But Sarah couldn't shake the fear that all this was temporary, that one day Michael would realize there was an entire life waiting for him away from them. Michael, in his silent apartment, looked at the photo he had discreetly taken during the party. Emily on stage holding her family drawing with the biggest smile in the world. He kept the photo in his wallet, next to business cards and important documents. It was his first family photo, even if borrowed. That night, all three slept thinking about the next day. Emily dreamed of pizza and more games with her borrowed daddy. Sarah debated between the hope that this could work out and the fear that everything would collapse. Michael, for the first time in years, had weekend plans that didn't involve work or empty social commitments. None of them imagined that the next day's dinner would be just the beginning of a journey that would test the limits of what family, love, and belonging mean. Nor that the coming weeks would bring challenges that would force each of them to decide what really mattered in their lives. The weeks following the school party brought a routine that none of the three had experienced before, but which felt surprisingly natural. Michael began visiting Sarah and Emily on Saturdays, always bringing something special, sometimes flowers for Sarah, other times a new book for Emily, but always his genuine presence and total attention. Emily blossomed in a way Sarah had never seen. The girl who used to hide behind shyness now ran around the house singing, proudly showed her homework and talked about Daddy Michael with absolute naturalness. Michael, in turn, discovered a version of himself he didn't know existed, patient, playful, genuinely interested in stories about princesses and dragons. Sarah observed everything with a divided heart. She saw her daughter's happiness and felt a deep joy but also a growing fear. Each passing day made it harder to imagine their lives without Michael, and that frightened her deeply. It was on a Thursday night, 3 weeks after the party, that everything changed. Michael had worked very late preparing an important presentation for international investors. It was almost 11 o'clock when he finally decided to go home. The company building was virtually empty, only the night cleaning staff working in the corridors. He was walking distractedly toward the elevator when he heard a hushed conversation coming from the office next door. It was his personal assistant, Robert, talking on the phone with someone. Michael normally wouldn't pay attention, but something in Robert's worried tone made him stop. "No, he can't know for now," Robert was saying. "If he finds out that the girl's mother works here as a cleaner, it will complicate everything. You know how he is with conflicts of interest." Michael felt his blood freeze in his veins. Robert continued. "Sarah Thompson, yes, she's been working the midnight shift for 2 years. Cleans exactly the executive floor." Michael leaned against the wall, processing the information he had just heard. Sarah worked at his company. Every night, while he was at home or in social meetings, she was there, cleaning his office, emptying his trash can, organizing the furniture he messed up. The world seemed to spin backwards. He thought about all the conversations they had had, how Sarah always changed the subject when he asked about her work, how she seemed too tired for someone who only worked during the day. It all made sense now, and he felt simultaneously guilty and betrayed. The next morning, Michael arrived early at the office and asked Robert to bring the employee files. He found Sarah Thompson's name on the list of outsourced employees from the cleaning company. Hired 2 years ago, working hours, 11 p.m. to 5 a.m., sector, administration, executive floor. Throughout the day, Michael couldn't focus on anything. He cancelled meetings, postponed important decisions, and stood looking out his office window, imagining Sarah there in the middle of the night, alone, cleaning the space where he made decisions that affected thousands of lives, including hers. That night, he decided to stay at the company to see her. At 11:15, he heard the elevator stop on his floor. He hid in an adjacent room and watched Sarah enter his office. She wore a simple blue uniform, her hair tied in a practical bun, rubber gloves on her hands. She worked in silence, with efficient and careful movements. Michael watched her empty his trash can, clean his desk, vacuum the carpet where he stepped every day. There was something deeply disturbing about seeing the woman he had begun to admire, the mother of the child who had become so important to him, performing invisible tasks in his own territory. Sarah bent down to pick up some papers that had fallen behind the desk, and that's when Michael saw how she really was. Her movements were slow, tired. She paused for a moment, massaging her back, and sighed deeply. It was the sigh of someone who carried the weight of too many responsibilities and too few resources. At that moment, Michael made a decision. He came out of hiding and waved his hand, not to startle her. "Sarah." She turned quickly, eyes wide with shock and embarrassment. The broom fell from her hands. "Michael, what are you doing here?" Her trembling voice revealed the panic she felt. She knew she had been discovered, that this moment would eventually come, but she wasn't prepared for it. "I work here," said Michael softly, approaching slowly. "The question is, why did you never tell me you work here too?" Sarah looked away, her hands trembling slightly. I didn't know how to explain." "How long have you known who I am?" asked Michael. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment before answering. "Since the first day. I recognized you immediately at the school gate. You're Michael Thompson, CEO of Thompson Enterprises. I've been cleaning your office every night for 2 years. The confession fell between them like a stone in still waters. Michael felt a mixture of admiration and pain. Admiration for Sarah's courage in keeping the secret to protect Emily, and pain for realizing that perhaps it had all been calculated from the beginning. "Why did you agree to let me get close to you both, knowing who I was?" he asked, his voice laden with emotion. Sarah raised her eyes to meet his, and Michael saw tears she was trying to contain. "Because Emily needed a father, even if borrowed," she said, her voice breaking. "And because I saw how you looked at her that first day. It wasn't a look of pity or condescension. It was a look of recognition, as if you were lost too." Michael moved closer, ignoring the formality of the workplace. "Sarah, do you think I approached you both out of pity? Out of charity?" She shook her head, confused. "I don't know what to think anymore." "Then let me clarify," said Michael, taking her hands gently. "In these last few weeks, you two have completely changed my life. Emily taught me what it means to be truly needed, and you showed me that there is beauty in simplicity, in honesty, in unconditional love." Sarah sobbed, allowing the tears to finally fall. "But I lied to you about where I work. How can you trust me now?" Michael smiled for the first time since the discovery. "You didn't lie, Sarah. You just protected your dignity and Emily's. I understand that." He looked around the office that he now saw with different eyes. "You know what impresses me most? Throughout this time, you've been here, taking care of my space, making it clean and organized so I could work. And at home, you took care of Emily, making her happy and safe. You take care of people, Sarah. That's what you do." Sarah looked at him through her tears, hardly believing what she was hearing. "You're not angry with me?" Michael shook his head. "I'm angry with myself for not realizing sooner, for having a company where employees like you need to work in the middle of the night to support your family, for having lived in a bubble while extraordinary people like you went unnoticed." At that moment, Michael made the most important decision of his professional life. "Sarah, I want to make some changes in the company. Fairer wages, more humane hours, childcare for employees. But I want to do this with you helping me. I need the perspective of someone who understands what it's like to work hard to support a family. Sarah's eyes widened. Michael, I can't accept this. People will think it's favoritism. He smiled, squeezing her hands. Let them think that. Some of the best executives I know started from the bottom. You have intelligence, determination, and most importantly, heart. That's exactly what this company needs. But Michael wasn't finished. There was something else he needed to say, something that had been growing in his heart since the first day in the park. Sarah, there's another thing. These weeks with you and Emily haven't just been about helping a child have a father figure. They've been about discovering that I want a real family. I want to be present not just on Saturdays, but every day. I want to be Emily's father forever, and I want to be your partner forever. The silence that followed was laden with emotion. Sarah looked at Michael as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. You're saying that, she began, but couldn't finish the sentence. I'm saying I've fallen in love with both of you, said Michael, with a simplicity that cut through Sarah's heart. With Emily's courage, with your strength, with the family you've allowed me to be part of. I don't want to pretend to be her father anymore. I really want to be. Sarah threw herself into his arms, sobbing with relief and happiness. For weeks she had prepared herself for the moment when Michael would discover the truth and leave their lives. She never imagined that the discovery could bring them even closer. I've fallen in love with you too, she whispered against his chest. I tried not to let it happen, but it was impossible. You don't just play with Emily, you listen to her, respect her, make her feel important. And with me, you make me feel seen. They stood embracing for long minutes in the silent office, each processing the magnitude of what was happening. Finally, Michael pulled back enough to look into Sarah's eyes. We have to tell Emily, he said. She deserves to know the truth about everything. Sarah nodded, agreeing. Yes, but I'm afraid of her reaction. What if she doesn't understand? What if she thinks we lied to her? Emily is wiser than we imagine, said Michael. She always knew our family was different, built by choice and not by blood. I think she'll be happy to know that now it's forever. The following Saturday, the three met in the same park where it had all begun. Emily played on the slide while Sarah and Michael, sitting on the bench, tried to find the right words to tell her about the week's discovery. Emily, called Sarah when the girl approached to drink water. We need to talk to you about something important. Emily looked between the two, her expression becoming serious. Are you going to say that Michael can't pretend to be my dad anymore? The question caught them both by surprise. Michael crouched down to her level. Why would you think that? Emily shrugged. Because good things in my life always end. I thought maybe you got tired of pretending to be my dad. Michael's heart broke and mended at the same time. Emily, look at me. She raised her big, trusting eyes. I will never get tired of being your dad. In fact, I don't want to pretend anymore. I want to be for real, forever. Emily's eyes filled with tears of joy. Really? Really? Sarah joined them, embracing both. Really, my daughter. Michael wants to be part of our family forever, and I want that too. Emily exploded with joy, jumping into Michael's arms. So you're going to be my real dad? You won't go away anymore? Michael held her tight, his own tears falling freely. I'm never going away again, Princess, I promise. That afternoon, sitting on the park grass, Michael told Emily about how he had met her mother at work, about how sometimes families form in unexpected ways, about how true love always finds a way to bring the right people together. Emily listened to everything attentively, and then asked the question that forever sealed the fate of the three. Michael, can I call you Daddy without having to say it's borrowed? He smiled, kissing her forehead. You can call me Daddy forever, because that's what I am, your daddy. 6 months later, Michael and Sarah got married in a simple ceremony with Emily as the flower girl, wearing the same yellow dress from the school party. The girl who once asked a stranger to pretend to be her father now had a complete family, built with genuine love and conscious choices. Michael transformed the company, implementing fairer policies for employees. Sarah became the Human Resources Director, using her experience as an employee to create a more humane work environment. Emily grew up knowing that family isn't defined by blood, but by love, presence, and daily choices of mutual care. And the teddy bear that Emily carried on the first day still has its special place on her bed, a silent witness to how three lonely hearts found each other and decided that being together was the best adventure they could live. The end. Dear listeners, we hope that the story of Emily, Sarah, and Michael has touched your hearts as much as it touched ours. This is a story about courage, the courage of a 5-year-old child who dared to ask for help, the courage of a mother who allowed a stranger into their lives, and the courage of a man who chose love instead of loneliness. To continue this emotional journey with us, we've prepared a special playlist with equally touching stories about families that form in unexpected ways. You can find it by clicking here. If this story reached your heart, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like on the video. Every day we bring unique stories that celebrate the complexity and beauty of human relationships. Don't miss our upcoming content and tell us in the comments, do you believe that true love can be born from the most unexpected encounters? We'll be waiting for you there.